But I thought we should just pick up with the big news from last week. I don't know if you saw, John, but there's been an update in the whole Raja Jackson, Stu Smith situation. If we go ahead and take a look at Stu's Facebook page, it was posted, Stewart has been released from the hospital and is now home resting. He sustained a serious head injury and was unconscious upon arrival at the ER. His injuries include trauma to both the upper and lower jaws, a laceration to his upper lip, and a fracture to the maxilla bone, which unfortunately resulted in the loss of several teeth. He has a long road of recovery ahead, but he remains in good spirits despite everything he has been through. We're deeply grateful for all the love and support we've received during this time. Thank you to everyone who's contributed in any way, whether through monetary donations, food, flowers, or gifts. Your kindness means more than words can express. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. With love and respect, Contessa Patterson and Stuart Smith, who we know as Psycho Stu. I guess that's good, John. You know, we didn't really know where things were, but it's a good update to hear that Stu's home now.
It's very good. Yeah, it's very good to hear that, you know, obviously you got a lot of issues there with the teeth missing and stuff. You know, I've got a couple teeth that Finley knocked out about 30 years ago. So I know how that is. It just fell out again last year. So like nothing's good, you know, health wise, it may be as best as you can do. And so that's good news coming up from the update.
We should mention that right now on Tuesday afternoon, they've raised over $220,000 on their GoFundMe for Stu, and it is available now if you'd like to donate. But when we try to get a real update on the situation, have you seen that Rampage made a post on Instagram sort of updating his thoughts? Have you seen that, John?
I saw part of it because a part of it was truncated when I saw it on social media. So I have not read the whole thing. I read part of it.
So here's what Rampage says on Instagram. This has gone too far. I'm sick of being quiet and letting all these low IQ people fall for clickbait. Yes, my son took things too far, and I'm pissed at him for being a POS and the way he handled it. But if Psycho Stu wasn't drunk and wouldn't have hit my son over the head with a real beer can while he was live streaming on his own stream, then Knox wouldn't have felt like they had to make things right by letting Raja get his quote unquote get back in the ring. If my son would have just went to the police when the beer can incident happened, then the whole event could have gotten shut down and we could have sued. But no, my son is not as smart as I'd like for him to be. Now my family and I are getting racist threats because of all the misinformation being posted, so content creators can get paid from viewers. People actually think my son just snuck in a ring in front of a live audience and picked Psycho Stu up without permission to be there. Get smart, people. It was staged. But Raja took it too far. He only shook his hand and accepted Psycho Stu's drunken apology because they said he could get it in the storyline. He was told he could quote unquote fuck him up. I have witnesses that says this isn't the first time that Psycho Stu has done some drunk shit backstage to a fan. Now we have the backstory that my son attacked an innocent military vet with PTSD, like my son knew everything about the man that came up from behind him and then hit him and asked him to sell it. I have other kids to protect, and I don't take kindly to threats. I'm not scared of prison or dying for my kids, and calling me names won't hurt my feelings. My son should face the consequences of going too far. He knows better. That's why he didn't tell me anything about the storyline. But Psycho Stu is lucky I wasn't there when he hit my son over the head with a beer can the day after he got a concussion from sparring the day before. I wouldn't have cared if there were a bunch of pro wrestlers would have jumped me. I'm a father first. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Let's all learn a lesson. Keep your damn hands to yourself. If you get paid to do fake fighting, don't disrespect people that do that shit for real. Now I'll put myself in this shit. DM me now. So we know that Rampage is pretty hot here.
Yep.
And he's trying to defend his son. What do you make of his statement just yesterday, I think, on Instagram?
That's a man. And I think that's how a man handles it. Look, that's his son. And he doesn't give his son any leeway here. He said his son has made a mistake. He said his son went too far, but he's also sticking up for his son. And that's what a father does. And I look, after reading that, I just think that's a guy who's a father and a man. And I thought he answered it incredibly appropriately and correctly, by the way. I think he's correct in everything that he wrote. This racist shit has got to stop. It's bullshit. That anytime you have a black and a white person, one side claims something's racist that they don't like it. People disagree. People have problems. He doesn't excuse his son here, and I haven't excused Raja either. No, I don't. It's certainly not coming from here. But this racist shit, calling Mark Henry a racist because you disagree with his opinion. Mark Henry is not a racist, okay? And all these idiots out there that are calling these racist terms, this shit's got to stop. That's what's wrong with so much of the vitriol on social media is anytime you have people of different races, ethnicities, colors, if you disagree with the person, the first thing you do is go racist on them. If you talk long enough in any thread, somebody's going to be called Hitler at some point. It's just a bunch of idiots hiding behind their computer. They've done nothing in their lives. And they want to pick on guys like Mark Henry or Rampage Jackson and use this racist bullshit. It's 100% wrong. If you disagree with them, I understand that. But it's not coming from a point of racism. It's coming from a point in Rampage case of that's his son. He doesn't excuse him. He says what he did was wrong. Mark Henry was stating his opinion about what happened. Your opinions can't be wrong. It's just your opinion. You may think it's wrong, but that doesn't make it racist. I just think this whole thing, it's not an overreaction to what Raja did. What Raja did was completely 100% wrong. And he's going to probably be prosecuted and punished for that. But all this other stuff that's going on here, this collateral damage, we're going to talk to AJ Mana here in a minute. To me, it's crazy. It's this cancel culture, and it's just from a bunch of idiots out there that don't know anything and haven't done anything in life, have not been successful, and want to hide behind their computer so they can be some keyboard warrior. These guys are just snowflake pussies.
Well, we are live, and we want to get your feedback about what you've seen on the update from Stu and certainly from Rampage Jackson. AOTV Productions is with us here live on YouTube, and he says, I wonder if anyone will take issue with Rampage saying the word fake. I know there's times, when we want to have that debate, but this is probably not one of those, is it, John?
I don't think so. And I understand AOTV is great friend of the show. Asking the question, he says fake, and he's probably taking a shot at, look, I'm sure he's mad to a degree too. That's his son, and he's not excusing him. But you've got these guys that, there's all types of caveats about this story, and Rampage calling it fake, instead of scripted or whatever he wants to call it. I got no issue with that. I got no issue at all with Rampage. I actually feel for him. He's just a father and had a son do a stupid thing, and he's handling it the best he can.
Michael Chandler, who is a former UFC star, actually took to Twitter and says he doesn't need punishment. He needs guidance. He's not a bad kid, just made a bad choice. Once I adopt him and get him hanging out with wholesome kids like Hap and Ace, we're going to turn his whole life around. And that has led to a big discussion about, where is the punishment, if you will. I think there's a lot of people who assume by now that there would be charges. And earlier today, Tom Lawler was on Ariel Helwani, and Tom doesn't believe that there will ever be charges filed here. And I see there's a lot of people on social media saying, hey, what is it going to take for LAPD to get involved? They have the entire thing on tape. But when I spoke with Jeff Jarrett earlier today, he felt like, hey, if that were to happen, the only winner is going to be the lawyers. What do you think from a legality standpoint here, if anything, John?
I've said before, once the guy's unconscious, that's assault, and I think attempted murder. Now the police have always been reticent to get into things involved in pro wrestling when you have something turn real, or you have some fight, or you have whatever happens. They've been very reticent to do that. I mean, because where do you step in and where do you don't? Where do you not? I think that's their fine line. I understand, it was pretty clear to me what happened. But the police, guy nails a guy, guy gets a receipt. Do you step in for that? It's a very much a gray area that the police have not wanted to tread in. So I can see where no charges may ever be filed.
It will be interesting to see how all of this shakes out. From a PR standpoint and a career standpoint, do you think what do you expect is next for Raja Jackson? I don't know if you saw, but there was a report over the weekend that he's already been booked for another independent. And I know that independent was getting some PR. I don't know if that was by design or not, What do you think is next for Raja Jackson? Will there be organizations that are hesitant to work with him? Did this cost him his career? Maybe not legally, but from a PR perspective.
It probably did. And I can see a very small chance that it doesn't. I think it probably cost him his career. And the whole thing, Conrad, when he hits him with the beer can backstage, and maybe he was drinking, I don't know. That's certainly what Rampage said. Others have said. I have no idea what actually, who was doing what at the time. I saw exactly what happened on video. Raja punches him right then. It's over with. People say, "Oh, okay, he hit him. He shouldn't have done it. He didn't let him in on it, and he gets punched. No big deal. Shit happens." What happened was in the ring, though, was egregious. A guy's unconscious, and it, and you just keep beating him until you knock out a bunch of his teeth, not all of his teeth, a bunch of his teeth. I don't know who will use him. I mean, this is a real lightning rod. You never say never. I mean, if Jake Paul came along and says, "I'll fight Raja," people would pay to see that. And so I don't know what's going to happen.
Man, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. If he tried to do some sort of influencer fight right now,
if Jake Paul says, "Hey, I'll fight him," bring it. We'll fight for real. And, use all this stuff, people are using about the wrestling and, fake words and all that stuff. That sucker draws. I'm sorry to talk about an incident like this where somebody, lost all their teeth and stuff, but that's the business side of it. If Jake Paul comes along and says, "Hey, I'll fight you for real. You want to fight? We'll fight for real." People would pay to see that.
It's interesting too, because you're talking about a heel versus heel matchup. I mean, we're talking about a real boxing match that's really probably not tasteful for us to even be discussing, but Jake Paul that's business. Yeah, it is the business, but Jake Paul's always playing the villain. And so now it feels like everybody's going to naturally want to boo Raja because of this. So it's like you almost want both guys to lose. That'll be interesting to see.
I remember one time we had some guy with it's a pretty boy something gimmick. I can't remember. It was some type of gimmick in the Sportatorium. And Killer Tim Brooks came out. We were stuck with creative one night. Somebody didn't show up or something. Killer Brooks came out one night. And he was the biggest heel in Texas. He came out one night and faced this guy who was making all these noise. And it was a heel versus heel, but everybody rooted for Killer because they knew the Killer was a badass. They want to see this guy get beat up. And that's wrestling, but that's storyline. That's what we're talking about. Jake Paul's a good, tough fighter. Raja is a good, tough fighter. I mean, this is something. I mean, I think Jake Paul could handle being a babyface in this one for one fight. I think he loves being a heel, but I think he can handle being a babyface for this one.
We are live on YouTube, and we want to hear from you. We get a comment here from Dave the Impaler, who's pointing out the obvious. I think we should share this with everybody. Dave says, "I hope everyone making content on this donates part of their earnings to Stu's GoFundMe, like James and Stevie Richards are doing." Of course, I think that's a given. I mean, if you think at this point JBL and I are doing this podcast because we're making boatloads of money, no, we like talking about wrestling with you guys. We could probably hang up and find a different way to make some more money. This is just fun. We love talking about wrestling, and we love hanging with you guys. Greatly appreciate you guys hanging out here with us. Derek Payne has an interesting question for you. He says, "Has there been an incident that JBL was a witness to that could have cost a superstar their career, but instead made them a star?" Do you remember seeing something happen where you think, that might be the end of him, and then it turns out you were wrong? They embraced it, and it became a sellable point. And
I've heard a lot of this, guys, Vince had an admiration for guys that, stood up for themselves, and he didn't mind it. He fined guys, I remember I was there when Bob Holly and Rene Dupree had an incident in the ring, and he fined Bob. It was a significant amount, but he didn't fire him. I think he understood, he understood the reason behind it, and there's a lot of instances where, guys did things that, might have been something that a miss, but because Vince thought they were standing up for themselves, he didn't have an issue with it. I don't know can't think of one that made a guy a star over it with that. There was times where guys had been in a scuffle or something and did well, and they got a push. I just can't think of a guy becoming a huge star. But yes, that has happened.
We've got
it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't really matter. But guys just have respect for guys. I mean, it shouldn't matter. I mean, it shouldn't matter if a guy is a Danny Hodge tough guy or a guy that's not tough at all. It just shouldn't matter is can they draw money, and do the fans think they're tough, which is completely different. You know, you can get over as this super tough guy, whether you are legitimately or not. It doesn't matter. It's all perception's reality.
We are live here on YouTube. If you've got a question, we certainly want to hear from you. I don't know if you saw, but we got a live comment here from Chanel Devious Bear, who says Stu is doing all right. In case anyone wants to know, just got off the phone with his wife, and hearing that he's on the mend, that's encouraging. That's good news for everybody. Dominic Alberto was with us here live, John, and he says another mass transit incident. I'll be honest, I hadn't even really considered that. This is kind of that, but in reverse, whereas that was a wrestler who was taking advantage of a newcomer. Now this is an outsider, sort of the same thing, but he's the one doing the damage. It is like a reverse mass transit situation here.
Yeah, it is. You know, and these things have happened, you know, on and off throughout wrestling history. You know, that's why you always had policemen, you always had guys, you know, willing to take care of guys. You know, John Pesic, probably the greatest policeman of all time back from the 20s and 30s. You know, you had guys when I was in Europe, you had Gustav Smeasel who could break the whole world in half. And I wasn't ever there. I never saw this, but fans come in and say, who do you want? And of course they're going to choose Finley over Gustav Smeasel. Gustav looked like he walked off a freaking Roman Colosseum statue somewhere. And Finley's the one that would beat you up, break your thumbs, and make you eat them. so there's always, you know, there's always been policemen in this business that, you know, you've had somebody, if they want to play, that you've got guys that'll play.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California. I came to Save with Conrad because I've heard Conrad talk about how he helps people all the time save money and the best route to go for getting some mortgages and finances done. And having heard so many different testimonials in the past, it made the most sense to go this route. We were in the market for a new house and we wanted to know what we could afford. So we spoke with Steve and then Diane to get through the pre-approval process to see what we could afford. And then once we were able to understand that aspect of it, that was when we were able to shop around for a house to get a mortgage through Save with Conrad. Everybody on the team was great. Everybody really explained everything fully to where it was more in like layman's terms to where I could understand it as someone not in the business or having shopped around for houses too many times. So being able to understand every step of the process and talking with everyone on the team about that was really, really helpful. And it made me feel really confident that I was going the right route. I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. I know that sometimes people look at it and they go, oh, they're based in Alabama, what could they help me with? But I'm out here in California and they were able to square everything away and get things done really quickly, as opposed to sometimes even people out here don't move as quickly as the Save with Conrad team. So everything was really well done, really efficient, and I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California, and I was able to get into my dream home with SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com.